Lost Art with Andrew Cox, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant. thelostart.podbean.com. Get some merchandise and help support the podcast in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Now on all major podcast platforms. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be a guest, tell your veteran story, discuss your veteran business or organization. Email The Lost Art with Andrew Cox at gmail.com. Andrew Cox, a Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. See the project story at tillvalhallaproject.com. Thanks for tuning in. Please enjoy the podcast that's giving a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox.
Today's episode is brought to you by TrumpShirt.com. TrumpShirt.com is a veteran-owned business where 100% of the proceeds goes to disabled veterans and veteran organizations. Support your veterans by purchasing a shirt at TrumpShirt.com. Use the promo code TLA and get free shipping. That's TrumpShirt.com, promo code TLA.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we'll be having a My Veteran Story with Marine veteran Brian Henry. But first, I want to take a second and give a shout out to the Till Valhalla Project and their incredible work in honoring our fallen heroes. I'm honored to be a part of their team and represent them as a Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. I encourage you to visit their website, tillvalhallaproject.com, and see what they have going on. Don't forget to go to our website, check out what we have, and also click on that merchandise tab, go in there and get you some cool gear and help support our mission. To all the listeners out there, thanks for tuning in and continuing to support us and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear.
So you were on a much quicker deployment cycle. You would go for 6 months, come back for 12, go for 6, come back for 12. So we went out, I got there, picked up the company, and then we ended up doing training. Training in Hawaii is interesting because it's definitely a lot more limited than First Marines and the MEU. I mean, you got all the focus, ammo, shooting ranges, all that stuff handed to you, and then you get out. Like Third Marines was not quite that way, and you're begging and stealing, just trying to get out there and get training. On Oahu is pretty small. There's spaces. There's different places on the island, but it was definitely a little bit different. I mean, it was awesome to live out there in Hawaii, and another good unit, good group of people. But deployed as a company commander. That was our deployments were over to Okinawa. So we just, sat on Okinawa for 6 months, did a little bit of training here, around the islands on that first deployment. And then that was, 6-month deployment, got back, turned over Echo. I became weapons company commander. And then for a while until I made major, and then I moved up to be the operations officer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For the second deployment.
Right.
Yeah.
How was that like when you're going from captain to now field grade officer? How's that transition for you guys? Is that
I had to get the lobotomy. They schedule that as soon as you make major now. I don't know if you've heard that term, but that's what they say. The field grade officers have a lobotomy and lose their brains. But
I see. Yeah.
It's interesting, but being in the same unit where you were a captain, all of a sudden now you're a major. My buddy, Scott Walker, who was one of the guys I served in 3-1 with, he was he was weapons company commander. So we floated together. We did the deployment together, then got back. He picked up major, became the OPSO. So I kind of just replaced him. Then he became the XO. I became the OPSO, and then we floated together. So it was a great experience. I mean, as operations officer, kind of seeing the whole operation, everything that's going on with the unit, all the training plans and everything, and working with the companies. So it was a good experience.
Yeah, I imagine that there's a lot of weight on that operations officer, especially when it comes to all the training exercises, those types of things.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're constantly, you're thinking so far ahead,
Yep.
of the companies and battalions and stuff. I'm sure it's a lot of headache.
Well, I mean, the good thing, you got a staff, you got a crew, you got the master guns, you get staff NCOs with you and NCOs, and
Right.
a S3 Alpha as well. So yeah, you get a
Mhm.
lot of people helping, but it was a busy, certainly a busy and active period, for that 6 months.
Right. Wow. And so you finished that deployment, and then did you stay there as an XO? Or did you go
So
somewhere
then
else?
I came back. I'm trying to remember. I think so myself and the XO both came back on the advanced party. So we were back, getting ready for, to get the battalion turned over. I got selected at that time for my next set of orders, and I got selected for recruiting command, Oklahoma City. So that's
Oklahoma City, that's my neighborhood. That's
oh,
good.
is it?
That's where I'm from, Oklahoma. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I I didn't realize the whole process on this, but so I was put up on, it's a selection board because it's command as a major.
Oh, right.
There were 8 recruiting stations available that year, and I get the message that I'd been selected as one of the 8 primary COs. And so then at that point they said, all right, well, here are the 8 stations. Tell us your preference on where you'd like to, which one you want to get of these 8. And I remember, so my wife is from San Diego, but originally her whole family is originally from the Philly area as well. So my top 3 choices were San Diego, Orange County, and Baltimore, just because of proximity to family. Because I knew
Right.
I knew that recruiting command was a guaranteed 6-day a week job.
Hmm.
You're working Monday through Saturday, guaranteed. And but anyway, I got selected for Oklahoma. I heard that the monitor told me, because later I decided I'm not going to take those orders and resigned. But the monitor told me that I got picked because I was the infantry guy, and they had relieved the CO at Oklahoma City, and the general that was leading that selection board said, send Henry to Oklahoma. He's the infantry guy, and send this other guy to San Diego. Or San Diego, I think, was already kind of earmarked. Someone probably worked their bolt to get the San Diego gig, but they sent
Yeah.
someone else to Orange County, and sent me to Oklahoma. Well, they wanted to send me to Oklahoma City.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was a big, up until that point. I was thinking, career, this is going great. I mean, it was a great
Hmm.
experience all along the way. While I was deployed on that second deployment, my son was born,
Hmm.
partway through. So he was 4 months old when I got home. I did see him I came back for a couple days, but now I had 2 young kids, a wife, and they want to send me off to Oklahoma City, where I knew what the job was going to be.
Hmm.
And in my mind, I'm thinking 3 years of 6 days a week. It's like you're home. I'd rather be deployed than
Yeah.
be home but not home with 2 young kids,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it basically I paused, and then I thought about it, and then I decided that I'm not going to accept the orders. My choices were execute orders or resign. So I resigned.
Oh,
And,
wow. Okay.
yeah. And
So
the other
you
factor
resigned
was,
in you got out while you were in Hawaii then.
yeah, I was in
Okay.
Hawaii when I got these orders. The other main factor to it is, this was 1998. So we had the
Hmm.
little blip of Desert Storm. Everything else was peacetime Marine Corps. And
Right.
I'm at this 11-year mark now, with this orders next 3 years. This was going to take me to the 14-year mark, where I would have been in for sure for 20.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm thinking, I think, if this is just going to be another 9 years of peacetime. Now, I didn't
Hmm.
realize, had I taken those orders, I would have been coming off of recruiting command when 9/11 happened.
Right. Yeah.
My
Very true.
life would have been 100% different.
Yeah.
180, from 3 years of recruiting command, which would have been a grueling tour. Then I probably would have gone to school and then out to a battalion, and
Right.
during the time that we're engaged in war for years. So I didn't realize that at the time, but I told the monitor, I said, I'm gonna submit my resignation and get out.
Okay. So you submit your resignation, you get out, you got wife, you got 2 kids. You're in Hawaii, but you got to either get back to San Diego or back to wherever family is, right? That area.
Yeah.
So walk me through that whole process.
Yeah. So I had like we moved back from Hawaii to San Diego. My wife's mom had a house here, so we moved in with her initially, and I just I started looking for jobs. But prior to that, I remember going to I flew in from Hawaii back to California to go to a hiring conference that a recruiting company was putting on that was lining up people and jobs. So I flew from Hawaii to Irvine, Orange County, and went through this hiring conference, which was an eye opener. It exposed me to all these different jobs, companies that I hadn't really ever considered before. And by the end of that, I kind of had a sense of, well, the main thing for me was that I said, I want to try to get a job in San Diego before just taking another job. So I didn't realize that at the time as a candidate that jobs in San Diego with a military recruiting firm were few and far between. And if you think about it, in San Diego, there's a large number of military getting out all the time.
Right.
Companies use a recruiting firm. They pay a recruiting firm help finding them people to go, to take the jobs. So, you just don't find a lot of companies in San Diego saying, hey, can you help me find a military guy in San Diego?
Right. Yeah.
I didn't realize that at the time, having not been exposed to it before. But anyway, I got out. We moved back from to San Diego, and then I was actively looking for a job. I got a friend of mine knew someone at Orion International, which is another one of the military recruiting firm, not the one that I went to the conference. But at that point, the one thing the conference did for me was it exposed me to the idea of sales. I had never considered it before. But through dealing with the recruiters, they're like, hey, you ought to look at these sales jobs. And from my perspective, I was interviewing for a lot of either manufacturing or like logistics, leadership type roles where you're kind of like being a platoon commander again.
Right.
Or sales where you're out there dealing with clients. You're kind of it's really up to you how successful you are driving your conversation, all those types of things. And so once I figured out that I was interested in sales, I started preparing more for it, reading books about it, getting myself ready to interview well for sales. And then I got offered an opportunity. I interviewed for a sales job at Orion, Orion International at the time. It's Orion Talent now, but recruiting firm in San Diego for a job in San Diego. And for you're selling, basically I was going to be selling to companies the value of someone coming out of the military. It's mostly junior military officers was one big part of the recruiting company's placement services. The other one was skilled enlisted technicians. So your electronics, electrical, mechanical, Navy nukes, avionics, all those backgrounds. And I was like, that's probably the easiest sales job out there to go sell the value of hiring some military guys with some good skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in that area, San Diego area,
Well, the office was in San Diego because the Orion's offices were kind of around where the military hubs were, but we would place people all across the country. The San Diego office had the west coast as the region. So it was like all of California, Arizona, and Nevada was kind of what fell into the west region.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I joined them, and so as I tell people, I got out of the Marine Corps not to do recruiting, and I ended up taking a job in recruiting.
There's some irony in there, I think.
But I wasn't in Oklahoma City, and I wasn't working 6 days a week.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then having to deal with the stresses of trying to find enough people to recruit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's I
Yeah, that's a brutal job.
more.
Those guys, the
Oh, I couldn't do it.
RSCO has to, I think I would have been in charge of like 27 recruiting stations. So you're on the road visiting
Yeah.
the stations all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then in recruiting, whether it's the Marine Corps or civilian recruiting, it's a month by month, quota
Yeah.
type job where it's you go from a hero to a zero every single month.
Yeah. Yeah. Those guys struggle, and
Yeah.
a lot of them very successful.
Yep.
But there are individuals that is not what they're good at doing, and they struggle hard. Totally messes with them mentally and stuff. They go from this. Typically, I was a good Marine or whatever, and whatever my MOS was, and now you're thrust into something new.
Right.
Any of the B-billets are like that, drill instructor, whatever. And
Yep.
then you feel like, especially at the beginning, you're like, I'm just a big turd. Like this is
Yeah.
horrible. So yeah, I feel
Well,
sorry for the recruiters though.
I told the monitor after I decided to resign, I said, look, I just did back-to-back deployments. And then you're going to send me right to recruiting. I said, if you'd sent me to school for a year, like send me to command and staff, regroup, and then go, I probably would have been like, Roger that. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the very next year they started picking the RSCOs out of command and staff.
Are you serious? Wow.
It was not, I mean, that was not my intention. I was just saying, look, if I had gotten a little bit of time to regroup with the family or whatnot
Mm-hmm.
before we thrust into this, I probably would have just kept going. Now, that would have taken me to the 12-year mark. And of course, if you go to school, you've already PCS to get there, so you can't resign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was
Yeah. They got you.
the following year, they started sending people out of command and staff were getting selected to go right to recruiting from there, which again, at least you are back in the school environment for a year before you go do it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, it's almost like a reset,
yeah,
get your mind right again, and then you can go into it. You go into it fresh.
right. But you can't,
Yeah.
but you also can't resign at that point because you accepted
Mm-hmm.
PCS orders. So you have no option. You're just going to go do it. So I don't know if they still do it. I don't know how they pick their RSCOs now, but
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea.
yeah,
That's pretty wild.
yep.
All right, and then have you been working for the same company the whole time?
So yeah, I just had my 26-year anniversary at Orion. So that was another. I go to this company where it's all military guys. We had
Mm-hmm.
recruiters and account executives. The account executives were the ones interfacing with the companies, selling the opportunities, trying to uncover openings that the company has, bring them to the table to hire people through
Right.
us and pay the fees that a recruiting company gets. And then you have the recruiters that deal with the candidates on the front end, and the two then meet in the middle when they have to place people into jobs. So
Okay.
it was kind of like it was such a. I think a lot of people go through a transition. They go from the military into some job where there's very few other military people around there, and the culture is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I went into an organization at Orion where we were all military. I mean, the whole company was
Right.
military. So that was very smooth transition that way. You have a lot of the same, a bunch of Marines, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, all different branches, but like-minded people working together.
Right.
On a valuable mission too. I mean, what we did, we knew was important. Getting
Yeah.
people a
Yeah.
job coming out of the military.
Yeah, that's really cool. And, that's one of the things that a lot of vets, especially, if they're not close to a military installation,
Yeah.
they have a hard time because they don't have the same camaraderie. They don't have the same structure that they had before.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, it's good that you were able to walk into that for sure.
Yeah, and I was also thinking in my mind in that job, I was able to see the landscape of all these different types of jobs and opportunities. Like I knew that if it didn't work out, I'd have like the playbook of how to get a job
Right.
and what jobs are out there. And the one thing I eventually, so I started out as the sales guy, but about a year in, I switched over to the recruiting side where I was dealing with the
Okay.
candidates on the front end. And then I stayed on the kind of the recruiting and then worked my way up in the leadership ranks to where I was in charge of half of our recruiting across the company.
Right. So with your extensive background in at Orion, if there's any listeners out there that's, oh, hey, I'm getting out or whatever, what advice would you have for those guys as they're pushing out?
So I think one of the hardest things in the transition is knowing what you want to do. So I think for most people, and if you don't know what you want to do, it's going to be hard to present yourself as being the perfect guy to do what the company is asking you to do. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that one of the greatest benefits I thought that the military recruiting firms delivered to the candidate was the recruiter could talk to the person about, hey, this is what other people, same background, whether it's degree or skills, these are the types of things you can be considering. And to start to open their mind to it, we would run hiring conferences back then. COVID changed things significantly.
Oh yeah.
But prior to that time, we would run hiring conferences where recruiters would be talking to candidates before they get out of the military. So that for the active duty, and we would bring them into a conference once they were within about 90 days of their terminal leave date, because companies were willing to hire people and wait 90 days. So that's about the time frame we'd bring them into a hiring conference, that first hiring conference, and then we'd set them up with interviews. We would tell them. So we would build these hiring conferences. The sales guys would be trying to bring companies to the event. The recruiters would be trying to bring candidates to the event. Over time, it starts to build shape, and you know exactly what companies are coming, what positions they have, in what locations. And so then you start really fine tuning. Like, we're trying to bring in the right candidates for the jobs that are going to be there. And so you're constantly recruiting, and eventually you get them all on deck for but like a 2 or 3 day event, where we would spend a day in preparation and briefings, and then the next day would be the face-to-face interviews with the companies. But that, I always told people, I said, go to a hiring conference, because you don't know what you don't know, and because you're there, you're going to have the opportunity to see and learn and hear about these things, and maybe that will be the thing that you get fired up about.
Right. Oh yeah.
And plus you get interview experience and all that stuff. So I always found that once somebody either could, if they knew what they wanted to do and they had a good background and they could prepare themselves, they could tell their story and relate it to why they're a good fit for that job and get the job.
Right.
But if you're just applying to jobs and you don't know anything about it, half the time people apply to jobs they didn't even know what their pay was.
Right.
I remember going on an interview having no idea, because they didn't used to tell you what the pay was for jobs. And you'd go into the interview and find out that it's way below what you're even interested in. You're like, why am I here?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So
I wouldn't
with
even
the
think they
recruiting
did
firm,
that.
you got the recruiter who's trying to figure out, like, we don't want to waste the company's time and put someone in front of them that's not on board with the location, the job, the pay, and has the skill set and the potential of doing the job.
Right.
And then, companies would be able to then see a group of people that are all at least that know about the job, come in prepared and interview for it. And then really it's kind of a competitive advantage. A candidate might see 4, 5, 6 companies, and maybe all 6 companies, are interested in them. And they're going to start now the ball's back in the candidates court to determine, well, which one do I like the best? And let's rank this out, and let's start moving down and see if we can get this to a job.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
So that's the way the business used to be. COVID kind of just stopped all that physical in-person conferences. I know Orion is now starting to do conferences again at a smaller scale. We used to do like 70 of them a year across the country. And
wow.
Now they're doing like maybe 12 or 16, I think is the plan. But the virtual, like what we're doing here virtually, you can do a lot of that interviewing stuff this way for sure, but nothing beats the in-person group setting, and the preparation that goes in with that as well, that sets the candidate up to be ready and prepared to go in and interview well.
Yeah. There's a group and I want to say it's like Heroes for Hire or something like that.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of online stuff, and they'll bring different people in, and
Yeah.
it's all like on Zoom or whatever. And a couple of my buddies or whatever have gone through that. And
Yeah.
it's kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's a legitimate thing. You're just kind of basically selling yourself for a couple of minutes, and then hoping somebody out there will like what you got, type of deal.
Well, it sounds like prior to COVID, you had job fairs, right? A job fair where
Mm-hmm.
there's just companies and booths and people walking around. The hiring conference is completely different. It's invite only. So the sales guys are trying to find specific types of companies with specific types of jobs that they know are going to
Right.
align decently with the types of candidates that we're going to find, right? So I was a recruiter on the junior officer side. So basically we were selling. You're getting a degreed leader with
Yeah.
with at least 4 years of experience leading people and teams and being in project management and all these other things. And they could do any type of frontline leadership, sales, potentially if they have the right personality. Some of them come with engineering degrees, so maybe they can do some more technical. We placed a ton of people in construction field where the
Mm-hmm.
construction companies realized that they can teach somebody about construction specific things, but they really need the leadership and the project management.
Right.
So we placed a ton of military guys into residential home builders as a start.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you see, once you have experience, wherever you go do, whether it's manufacturing or construction, whatever, you go do that first job, you get a little bit of experience. Now you're no longer a transitioning vet that doesn't have a skill set that's directly related to a job.
Mm.
Now you can shape and take your career whichever direction you want to go.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It'd be a step up. So, because I think we find that companies value that military background for sure. There's
Yeah.
plenty
Oh,
of them
yeah.
out there that do.
Yeah. Now, I know you recruited the junior officers, but
Mhm.
is there something for the enlisted
Yeah.
as well? There is?
Yep.
Okay.
So typically we had two different teams. We had a junior officer recruiting team in each office, and then we had enlisted primarily
Gotcha.
technical. So and that's because we found that the demand for the job. So like we placed a lot of people in the semiconductor industry up in the Bay
Mhm.
Area, for instance. If you have electronics techs coming off of the Navy or avionics, the aircraft, I mean, that skill set, they already know electronics. Again, they can teach them about what they do working in a fab and creating computer chips. Um,
Right.
so the demand was there. We always struggled with the demand for the non-technical skilled junior enlisted in particular, like because it's staff
Yeah.
NCO ranks. The staff NCO then are whether they have a degree or not can certainly step right in and fill leadership jobs for companies.
Right. Yeah.
But the challenge was always, can you find enough demand to then warrant to put the people in to find the candidates? You can find candidates all day, but unless you're finding enough jobs, can you make the whole thing match together?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so Orion now has a group within the company that's working specifically in the Skill Bridge. Are you familiar with Skill
Oh,
Bridge?
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great thing for
And
for all the military,
yeah,
really.
great program. But
Hmm.
even there, like companies can't figure it out themselves oftentimes. So
Hmm. Yeah.
we're trying to fill that void and say, look, we can help the company figure out how to do this and do it right. And you
Hmm.
still need to get in front of the candidates and let them know. Someone has to, it's not, you're selling them or you're getting them interested in the opportunity. That doesn't just
Right.
happen, passively. That's an active effort. And so we've got recruiters, we got people finding the companies that want to do it. We've got recruiters finding the right candidates for the types of jobs that they have and bringing some of that together through the Skill Bridge program now as well.
So with the Skill Bridge program, that's somebody that's looking for a particular thing. They go through the thing, or the website has all the different job locations and what they are, type deal. If I'm going to do Skill Bridge, is that something that I would come to you and say, hey, look, I'm getting ready to do Skill Bridge. Here are some things that I'd like to do. and then you see if they're a good fit for that, or how would that work?
Well, see, I don't know. And again, I have moved into a completely different role
Yeah.
inside the organization. So I'm not directly involved with our Skill Ridge program exactly to know what they're doing. I know we get out there on the different bases,
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to build up that client base of interest so we have enough jobs to be recruiting for. So I think our recruiters will find people that are looking for it. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah. Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
goes back to, I mean, technology has changed significantly since I started recruiting. When I started, our recruiters were getting names through I think it was called the Doors system. It was some old archaic system. It was
Hmm.
pre-Monster. Monster.com was not even around. So if you think about it,
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah. So we've gone from all of a sudden Monster jumps up like pretty early on, right around the time that I was starting or right after. Now you get to the point where LinkedIn, all this virtual stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's so much easier to navigate the transition and the job search than it was back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the point where back then it was almost like you wanted to go to a military recruiter because they just cut through all the and got to that. Now there's so many different options out there for people to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I would suggest that they reach out to the recruiting firm, find out if they think you're a good fit for each other, right? It's, hey, this is what
Yeah.
I'm thinking I want to do. I would always be able to tell someone pretty quickly, hey, I think we can help with that, or we can't. If we can't, let's not waste. We're not going to waste each other's time. But if we can, then let's get engaged, get in the database, so that we
Mm-hmm.
can find you. We're gonna, as a recruiter, I'm going to look inside my internal database at people that I've talked to or have some contact with before I go
Yeah.
blindly out there looking. So get in their database, apply online to in their program, get their resume in there, let them know what you're looking for so that they can at least find you quickly and reach out to you when they've got that right opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice. I like
Yeah.
that. So, hey, thinking back over your military career, and then what you've been doing with Orion since, what advice, just in general or whatever, words of wisdom, if you will, anything like that, that you would have for the listeners?
Well, I was going to say one of the cool things I think in my experience in the Marine Corps is, and I think it was Desert Storm, that 3-1 crew that I was with. We were
Hmm.
super tight, and we stayed connected. One of our lieutenants, Pete Baumgarten, I mean, years ago, was going to take command of First Marine Regiment. So he was
Hmm.
weapons platoon India 3-1, and I use that as an impetus to reach out and try to reconnect across the board with the battalion. I grabbed the cruise book and started connecting back to all these people, and we created a reunion around his change of command ceremony at Camp Hornet.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
We got like almost the whole battalion staff, and then in the India company, like his Marines, a lot of his Marines came from his platoon and
Oh,
to the
wow.
company came in. So and then that has just stayed fresh. So, keeping in touch with your friends from the military, staying
Hmm.
connected. Again, a lot easier these days with Facebook, with social media, LinkedIn. Certainly,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to stay connected than it was then. Like I think we floated apart a little bit,
Yeah.
but now we're tight and we get together on a regular basis. Different
Very
events,
cool.
and we were doing a happy hour Zoom session for in the battalion during COVID. But now
Oh,
we
wow.
now we actually are doing different events and share stuff and have a long email chain that keeps people connected.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
connection
Very
is
good.
important, I think. So to maintain that, and then if you like, I don't know. Do you ever read Sebastian Junger's book Tribe? Have you
Oh,
heard of
yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So finding your tribe again, because you're not going to
Yeah.
replace the Marine Corps. Like I know firsthand, the Marine Corps is very hard to replace. Uh, but you got to find something out there. I was introduced to you through Mark O'Laughlin. So not
Hmm.
only was he my first squad leader, years later, because I coached my son's baseball teams all the way up, Little League, All Stars, travel ball. But at some
Right.
point, I said, you need to go play for someone other than your dad before you get to high school.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was spending a lot of time outside of work on baseball coaching. And I said, okay, what am I going to do now? And then that's Mark and I had been in, we've stayed in touch, and he was in the Nice Guys. So I joined the Nice Guys, and the Nice Guys has
Oh,
now
right.
become another tribe. It's a nonprofit charitable organization here in San Diego. So the big part of the transition is find your tribe somewhere, whether it's
hmm
through a charitable organization, getting involved in community or something. There's ways to kind of rebuild that and keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Nice Guys Foundation is a fantastic organization.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to have you on to talk specifics about that. Well, I think it's this Sunday we're recording it, if I'm not mistaken, or the following.
Right.
It's in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, great organization. Just real quick, I'll tell you, when I was in Camp Pendleton, I had a Marine having issues. They needed a washer and dryer, and they just didn't have the funds to be able to get a washer dryer type of thing. And I was like, well, let me make a phone call. So I called Mark, and he was like, well, let me see what I can do. And then Nice Guys paid for a brand new washer and dryer,
Wow. Yeah.
and gave it to him. So I mean, you guys do some fantastic things, for the military community for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And the San Diego community is large, but yeah, we have a decent core veteran group inside of our organization. We've got a bunch of Marines. General Neal, one of our members, is retired brigadier general, and a couple sergeant majors. So there's a good Marine Corps contingent inside of the Nice Guys and other branches. The other branches are well represented as well.
Yeah, very nice. Well, hey, Brian, thanks for coming on and telling your story. It was fantastic. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah,
hey,
incredible
here's
story.
one last thing before I forget.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think I might have mentioned it to you, but I got exposed to the Tun Tavern, the Marine Corps born in Tun Tavern in Philadelphia, right? A bar in Philly. And there are guys right now that are working on getting that rebuilt. They've actually got the land. They already have the land. It's going to be just like 300 yards from the marker.
Oh, wow.
From the original site. And they're going to break ground this November, open it November 10th, 2025, which will be the 250th birthday. So I just tell people, go look at it's Tun. I think it's Tun Foundation. If you look up Tun Tavern Foundation, I think it's tunfoundation.org. But you can see what they're doing, what the plans are. People can donate, contribute. You can buy a tankard. They're selling these big tankards. They got one where it's bottomless. I mean, if you live in the area and you might go there a lot, you get the bottomless tankard and
yeah.
But it's going to be cool. And I know my 3-1 group, we're already planning. We're going to be back there on November 10th, 2025 to
very cool.
Celebrate the opening of Tun Tavern.
Yeah, it's the tun.org.
Tun.org.
Yeah, the tun.org.
Yeah. I know it's been tried many times in the past, but they've coalesced this group of the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick, the Navy, because it's Tun Tavern was kind of a major meeting place for the Navy. So you had the Freemasons, all these different groups that met in that place are all coming together, different organizations, and they're going to build this replica of Tun Tavern plus restaurants and other things attached to it. And it's going to be a nonprofit that's going to fund veteran charitable efforts as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. Hey, Brian, thanks for that. Thanks for mentioning that as well, the Tun Tavern thing. That's really cool because I definitely want to get out there to see that. That'll be very exciting.
Have you ever been to the marker?
I've never been there at all. No.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you see when people get to Philly, they find their way to that marker, take a picture, post it there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to Philly, so that's one place I definitely want to try to get to. But
there used to be a big birthday block party in Philly at this one bar, Cookies Tavern. But I think that's going to shift to Tun Tavern these days. Once that's
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, hey, Brian, thanks for coming on. I truly appreciate you. and giving us some words of wisdom as well. To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you need some help, you can always reach out to the VA. You can dial 988, press option 1. You can also text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on that chat icon. Any of those options are going to be able to put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. Brian cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. With that, Brian, one last time, thank you to all the listeners. Stay motivated. Change your thought.